Good afternoon, everyone, for people who are in East Coast time and Pacific. Uh, so today's session is actually about how to become a software architect or what is the role of a software architect. Um, I hope you all can hear me loud and clear. I will be watching the chat window as well. And I want to keep this session a little bit interactive. So please feel free to interrupt, stop me if you want to ask something. I want to make sure that at the end, I leave a good amount of time for you guys to ask questions. If you need me, here are my coordinates. You can always ping me, reach out to me. On LinkedIn, I'm very active. You can message me or anything you need. Through my blog also, you can contact me, and I would like to answer your questions. And this session is not anything related to a bookish knowledge or I got it from somewhere and then I'm presenting it. I have been a software architect for quite some time. So here I will be sharing a lot of insights with you, what I learned, what I see, what I saw works, what I saw which did not work, and many things in those lines. So I hope you would like it. Let me begin with the session now. So this is a little bit about myself. I have 18 plus years of industry experience. I have worked in um, India, of course, Indonesia, United States of America. I have been working here since 2008. Um, my recent role is with Microsoft. I work as a principal software engineering manager with Azure Group. My team is called CXP. It's a customer experience team. This is the place where I run the platform architecture team for our platform, which we offer to Azure customers. I have been a Microsoft MVP for almost 7 years. My MVP with Microsoft got sort of canceled because once you take a full-time role with Microsoft, you are not entitled to be a Microsoft MVP anymore. But I am a C# Corner MVP since 2013. This is a community website. I'm sure many of you, when you do some search, you come across this website a lot. So next time, if you come across, pay attention to that. I have almost over 9 million views of my work on C# Corner website. I'm also a TOGAF Certified Architect. I have a couple of certifications in Scrum as well. So I am Certified Scrum Master. And then I'm also a CAPM Certified Associate in Project Management. This is sort of PMP. It's one level down from PMP, if you want to understand in that manner. I have also appeared for almost over a dozen certifications for Microsoft. Many of those may not make sense now because Microsoft keep retiring certifications. And I'm also a published author for these 5 books you can see at the bottom of this screen. And these are almost over a dozen books, which I did the technical review for different publications for PacketPub, O'Reilly, A-Press. I still did few more, which I don't have here, but I am an active technical reviewer for various publication houses. Now, let's jump into this software architecting, right? Now, this is a definition. If you search on internet, you will find this sort of definition. Usually, a software architect is somebody who is considered as a software expert. Expert is sort of an overrated word here, I would say, who makes high-level decision choices and dictates. Dictate is again a sort of overrated term here. Dictates technical standards, including software coding standards, tools, and platforms. This is what, at a very high level, how your footprint look like. I said 2 words here, expert and dictates, overrated, because I don't think anybody is an expert, and I don't think we are working in that team setting or an era where anybody is dictating anything. We all are working in a very collaborative, cohesive environment of teams where everybody collaborates together for the success of the product, right? So I don't think that dictate or expert is the right verbiage here. But before really, so this is what I got from internet, or if you search, you will find something similar. Before I really do dive into this session, I would like you guys, if you want to be a software architect or if you are already an architect, I'm sure you will learn something from this session as well. Because if somebody is giving a session tomorrow, I would be more than happy to join that to see what else can I learn or collaborate with that person, right? So before we really get into this thing, uh, or we want to become an architect or somebody wants to become an architect, there is always a big why, right? Uh, Many times I have heard from people, oh, it's a better title. Uh, okay. And some people have told me, because I do a lot of mentoring to different folks, many people are open enough and transparent, say that in architect role, there is more money, right? Now, my viewpoint is a little bit different. While I'm not disagreeing that there is not more money or it's not a better title, it's for people who believe so. I say that look for the growth of opportunity. Look for what do you like most? What is it you enjoy doing, right? So those are the, I think, most important things any individual need to look for. In many organizations, I have seen people have only one path to grow. Means you are at a certain position or a certain level in your organization, your next promotion is supposed to be only an architect. Then you have no choice. But I don't think in today's world that's the case. In most of the companies, it's wide open. There are many career choices. You can always transform into a different role and become something else. However, my choice was always, like, I remember when I was working in Indonesia back in 2002, people were asking me, what is your future path? And I was telling people that I want to become a software architect. And I was very fortunate that I was able to pursue that path and become that person. So always ask yourself why. Uh, Many times people don't know why, and unless you really see what it looks like. So I'm going to share that with you guys, what it looks like, right? So in general, uh, an architect day is this is how it looks like. These are almost 15 items I have here. So meetings. Uh, this may sound a little bit funny that meetings, oh, everybody has meetings, but architects have a lot of meetings. When I was working with T-Mobile until September 2020, believe it or not, many times I had more than one meeting at any given time. And then I have to prioritize which one is more important. In some places, I will send some of my allies, like I will ask a technical analyst to go, and then they will ping me, oh, this question is being asked, what do we do, and things like that. Roadmap planning. Roadmap is what is the path your organization is behind, what are the future initiatives, and many things like that. Impact analysis. I have done that numerous times at T-Mobile. There were 23 domains in T-Mobile. Just to name few: order management, inventory, payment, customer, address, document management system, legal, and many more. And then we had different channels, we had different platforms. We have three channels we were supporting our customers from. We had web, we had mobile, and then we also had the IVR. When you push keys, you dial 611, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, type your account number, and things like that, right? So many APIs were being called behind. So impact analysis is something that, okay, and I was owning payment and order management there. That payment system, which we call DPS, means digital payment services domain, they are changing their payment gateway from X to Y. Now, what impact does it have on us? To do this, before I really say that, even if you are a dev or an architect, whatever, right? You have to see, are they changing the contract of the APIs which I am consuming? Many times yes, many times no. Sometimes they will say yes, there is a change because we want you to pass an extra field because our new gateway wants that and we don't already have it. Many times they will say no, we are taking care of it behind the scenes, no change on you, it's behind the scenes. Then the only impact analysis goes from an architect side is a testing effort. When they change it, we want to make sure everything works fine, right? So there is a small impact on us, but it's a testing effort. I hope you got the idea. And many times it was more like a dev effort, analysis effort, re-architecting effort, and things like that. Now, design discussions. In many organizations, people do not have a habit to jump into direct development. Instead, they want to spend time in designing. Designing is a very important aspect, but at the same time, you do not need to get into analysis paralysis that you keep thinking about design, design, design. But design discussion is how are we going to approach this problem? Uh, it could be your solid design principle, it could be your object-oriented design, it could be your architecture design, or all things together. Now, production issues. There are so many times you are pulled into production issues. Many times it could be a blame game as well. Many times it could be a learning exercise. I have been into all the situations where people will say, oh, architect didn't tell us, so we didn't do it. Many times it will be just a totally new thing you learn. So production issues, you might be pulled into that. However, many teams have a dedicated production support team or a DevOps team which takes care of it. Performance and security improvements. When I was working with T-Mobile, there was a hack, uh, a sort of a bot attack on a prepaid where somebody was able to access our anonymous token, and that person started hitting our API, and that person collected a few $1,000s worth of recharge tokens that he can recharge, the recharge vouchers, not tokens. And once we learned about that by monitoring our website traffic, uh, we had to really work on it. We throttled and all these things, but that was more like a reactive approach, I would say. So there are a lot of things where you go in security improvements, present your case studies and things. Code quality, best practices, and governance. This is something which is very close to most of the architects' heart. And I will tell you one thing, while code quality best practices could be part of everybody, but governance is something which architects continue to own uh, across your team or organization. Dashboards and monitoring. Many times I have seen not every team has invested into dashboards and monitoring. Architect's job is also to really invest into this initiatives of dashboards and monitoring if you don't already have one. There is a new term evolving these days. It's called observability. It's not monitoring anymore. It's called observability, where you set alerts, you are in constant watch. So before any service goes down, uh, or it starts giving you 500, you will be observing the pattern of the traffic and the response time of the API. Per my experience, what I have seen is that before an API or a container or an app service, whatever you have deployed, before it really gives you 500, you will, if you see the pattern, there will be a lot of resource consumption, means your API will start performing slow, 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 and then it will come to an end where it's not responsive at all. So in observability pillar or tenant, what happens is when you have that mindset with observability, you are observing the behavior, and before it really goes down, you try to go and start looking or investigating into it. Cross-team collaboration is very important these days. I have solved numerous problems in multiple organizations just by collaborating with people. I will give you some more examples later on. Hands-on coding. Uh, I was able to do a lot of code reviews at T-Mobile. In my previous assignments, I was able to write entire REST APIs, microservices on my own in .NET. T-Mobile was using Java Spring Boot. So when I say hands-on coding is something that not every architect does, but I highly recommend people to know coding. Don't think like it's supposed to be like that FANG sort of coding thing. You need to be an expert in algorithms and data structures. However, what I mean is that if you are in an enterprise application development or you write line of business applications, then you should be able to read the code and you should be able to identify anti-patterns and hold the dev team or your peers accountable in order to have them write good quality code. So you should be able to write code, you should be able to read code, you should be able to clone the repo in your local environment and work with it. That's what I mean by hands-on coding. Code reviews. Uh, an architect supposed to be close to code as much as possible. That's my personal recommendation. It may not be somebody's personal choice, but I have done a lot of code reviews at T-Mobile. I still do. This is another way to know what is happening and not leaving the habit of being close to code when you are becoming an architect or you are already in architecture role. Um, Martin Fowler gave a very interesting term for architects. He said that Many architects do only diagramming, designing, and presentations and things like that. And Martin Fowler calls them ivory tower architect. Means they are not close to code at all. They only do diagramming and all, which is still a big part of your responsibility, but it's up to you if you want to be close to code or not. My personal choice is always be close to code. And then I'm on the third last, by the way, if you guys are following along. Mentoring and coaching. Architect's role is also to mentor and coach people. You can mentor them for different things. You can coach them for different things. Innovation. Innovation is something very important architects invest time into. When I joined T-Mobile, there were a very large team. We had like over 24 sprint teams working day and night. And it was a distributed team. We had a distributed Scrum. And it was so fast-paced environment that we did not even have time to delete the repos, or the pull requests are hanging there for days. Your code is constantly merging and things like that. So I found at any given time there are so many old stale branches which needs to be cleaned up, and it was becoming a headache on team to really look into it and figure out which branch I need to delete, or how many branches I have which I need to delete. So what I did in terms of innovation, we were using Slack in T-Mobile. At Microsoft, we use Microsoft Teams, of course. So in Slack, what I did, and we were using Bitbucket there. So on Bitbucket repo, I wrote a small code with the help of one of dev I had in my team. And the code, what it did in terms of innovation is it will just crawl through each repo, and the path will be in a config file. I will give the path and the token and credentials in a config file. It will go and log in 4 times in a day to that. It will crawl through it and then publish everything in a Slack channel for each repo, that how many pull requests are there, how many Bitbucket, how many old stale branches are there, how many open pull requests. If there was a pull request, was there a test impact or not? Did you write unit test or not? Or even how many pull requests went approved without even a single line of code comment written in it? Or how many pull requests were approved without having 2 code reviewers? So I was trying to enforce that there has to be 2 code reviewers at any pull request, not just one. So all these sort of metrics we laid out and publish it in a Slack channel. So that was sort of innovation you can think of. I'm just giving few ideas here. You can think of even better than that. And then leadership discussions. Many times you will be asked to go and present in various leadership meetings and discussions to present your viewpoints, write your papers, articles, give PowerPoint presentations, or even just talk about something new you are planning to work upon. So all these are the things which architects are supposed to do on daily basis. Now, I have been talking for quite some time. I will take a pause now, and I would like to ask you guys if there is any question or any concern you have so far.
Are you planning to talk about how you get your design across to people? That's one thing I've struggled with being an architect. Like what are good diagrams or type of things to get a design across?
Sure. Richard, my friend,
yes.
Do you mind typing your thing in the chat window, please, for me? I don't know if I really have it in that detail here, but I can surely touch base on it. Just put a Q before your thing and type your question here, and I will address it for you. I have done it so many times.
No problem.
I don't know how helpful would that answer be for you, but I will certainly touch base on it. All right.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Is there anything else from anybody's side? As I said, I want this to be interactive, so please feel free to disturb.
I got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shahzad, I hear you.
Yeah, so I have a question that you mentioned you are certified Scrum Master as well as TOGAF certified. So just wanted to know, as an architect, did you happen to use the Scrum Master skill set that you acquired?
Very good question. I will address that for you. That's my next slide, by the way. But
Oh,
Richard and Shahzad, could you please put your questions in the chat window? Just put Q and then your question.
sure.
Okay, I got a question from Rajiv Thakur as well. And as I said, if you feel I did not answer any of your question here, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to collaborate with you guys and help you whatever I can. All right. So I will move on now, but please keep it interactive. Do not hesitate to disturb in the middle. Rajiv, I got your question. If you want, you can lower your hand. And so the next one is certifications versus working knowledge, right? So as I said, I have given over a dozen Microsoft certifications. I am TOGAF Certified Architect, Certified Scrum Master, Certified Associate in Project Management. And what I learned is that, and I have worked with so many smart people, and that's the beauty, right? You always want to work with the smart people. So what I learned is that certification may not bring working knowledge. Always remember that. I do know folks, I have so many friends, they call me, hey, I want to join Microsoft. Do you think if I do Azure 301, or now they call it 303 and 304, earlier it was 300 and 301. If I give these exams, Microsoft Azure team will give me a job. So many people ask those questions, right? What I learned is that certifications may not bring you working knowledge, but it does bring credibility. All right. And I will give you one example here. When I applied at T-Mobile, okay, the hiring manager gave me two roles. He gave me a senior architect position and then a principal architect. And he said, hey, Vidya, could you please apply on both? So I applied for both. Let me tell you that. And that happens very often at jobs. In jobs, many times they will bring you down a level. Sometimes I have not seen they promote anybody up, but they bring you down if they don't see you are a fit, you are meeting the bar. Many companies do that. So I applied for both. But when I met in the interview, when I was being interviewed, I learned that there were few folks who were my interviewer and at a very senior position in T-Mobile. They were also TOGAF certified architects. And I was also a TOGAF certified architect. So when I was talking in my interview, giving my things, since I knew that this person is also a TOGAF certified architect, I used those terminology which TOGAF has in it. And that helps you to connect better. You know, it matches your wavelength because you are talking the same language. However, not many organizations use TOGAF in daily basis up to 100%. But there are few things which every organization uses without knowing. For example, TOGAF has a term in it called architecture repository. Every organization, if you are really concerned and careful about your architecture, you have an architecture repository. It could be a PowerPoint deck. It could be your SharePoint website. It could be a wiki page. All these things are considered as your architecture repository. There is a term called reference architecture in TOGAF. If you have any sort of guidelines documented, maybe a few dozen articles or some coding guidelines, best practices, designing standards, how to do caching, how to deploy in multiple regions, and many more things in those lines, this is your reference architecture. And TOGAF talks about it. What TOGAF teaches is that how to bring all these things together and work as a cohesive organization on TOGAF principles, right? That's what TOGAF does. So I was always interested in achieving that certification. So I did up to the certified level. There are two levels in it. One is foundation, one is certified, which has a case studies. So I did up to that level. Now, I think Shahzad asked me the question that, does it help? Like I have certified Scrum Master. I will tell you one thing. If you will read my LinkedIn profile, the one thing which I always say is that I'm passionate about people, process, and technology. And what I learned so far since beginning of my career is that without these three things, at least I was not successful in my career. Because on daily basis, you deal with people, you deal with processes, and then you deal with technology. If you have great people and great technology, but you don't have right processes in place, you are not going to be successful, right? If you have right process and right technology, but not the right people, then again, you are not successful. And the third one you got by yourself, right? If you have right people, right process, but not the right technology, again, you are not successful. So what I learned is that there is this deadly combination that you need to really learn to work with people, process, and technology. And process is something which has always been close to my heart. And I have been a developer by myself. I am still a developer at heart, and I do not like over processes. If you ask me to write a documentation for so many days, I will be very mad. If somebody asks me to write every single thing into a user story, I will be very mad. And I will give you one example how it helped, Shehzad. Uh, at T-Mobile, we had so many vendor teams. As I said, like any given time, we had over a dozen sprint teams working day and night. And many times there is so much waste. What that waste is, that waste could be we are getting null reference exception afterwards. What the heck is that? Why am I getting null reference exception? And I started joining their retrospective meetings. And I learned that nobody's talking about those issues. They are talking about, oh, this person is leaving the organization. I'm feeling sad. This person helped me to fetch a coffee the other day, so I appreciate that. All these things are good. But my thing is I'm a little bit fast thinker and I like to move forward fast. So I asked them that could we please focus just 30 minutes in your retrospective on the right things which really meant for the sprint and what is the action item. So I was able to do all these things, not with an authority that I'm your Scrum Master. There was always a Scrum Master who was designated, but I was an enabler or a catalyst to bring that change because I know how Scrum works. In many places, I was able to chime in and help them how to challenge the story points. So in one of the discussion, I was there and there was an API which needed to be designed and somebody threw 8 story points. I said, all right, could you please elaborate why 8 story points? And they said, oh, we have to do some research. We already have an API, but then we need to see how it works and this and that. So I said, no, it cannot be 8. There is no way you can finish it in one sprint. And believe it or not, after some time, that was brought down to 3. So if you don't know these things, you cannot challenge them. But I'm not encouraging you or feeding the thought that everybody has to do this certification. That's not the intent I have. But I have it, and it helped me a lot, and it still helps me. So that's what my aspect is. Now, one last thing I have on this one is that, remember, combination is deadly, as I said. If you have a working knowledge and you are certified, then it brings a lot of credibility. So when I'm going to challenge anybody in any organization, wherever I worked so far, I was very courageous and open to challenge people in those regards because they knew I am also certified. So I have authority, I have the credibility, I have the credentials. They cannot say, oh, Vidya, how much do you know about Scrum? But once they know that I am a certified Scrum Master, they know this person has certification and this person has been doing software development for quite some time. So he knows what he's talking. Many times I was knowing even more than Scrum Masters because not every Scrum Master has gone through software development practices, right? Which is fair. Scrum Master's role is not that. It's a servant leadership role. So which is fair. Now I will not talk much about this thing. I will move on. In the meantime, I'm just also paying a little bit attention to the questions here. How much project planning and resourcing are involved? Proc John asked that question. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. So John asked that question, how much project planning and resourcing are involved? So John, what I will tell you is that it depends on place to place. I have been in service industry. Now I am with Microsoft. I was with T-Mobile, which is not a service industry. It depends on which type of organization you are with. In my previous role, I have done both these things which you are asking, being an architect, because you do a lot of RFPs and you write a lot of documentation for client projects and things like that. And in those cases, you might be required. But since I joined T-Mobile or with Microsoft, that's not part of my role. I don't do it. I'm not supposed to do it. We have different people who does that. So I hope I answered your question with the perspective I gave you. Shehzad, how skills learned via CSM relates to the role? I think I answered that sort of in a way. Richard, what do you use to help example your design? Okay, I will talk about it. And as I said, if you sleep over the answers I have, recording will be available as well. Feel free to send me a note on my LinkedIn or whatever medium you prefer, and I will elaborate more on that. Okay. Now, this is a very important thing. I really want you guys to understand it. It's a very simple concept. Okay. Now, what is the shape of a software architect? It's sort of a silly question, but before I really talk about it, Developers, okay? Everybody has been a developer before you really become an architect. Or at least in my view, a successful architect has to transition through a developer first. Now, developers, if you know about them, they are very heads down on something particular, right? Like somebody could be a very smart in React, Angular, front end, JavaScript, jQuery, HTML, CSS3, and all that stuff, right? I have always been a more inclined and gravitated towards backend. So I have always been a backend person. And wherever I said I wrote code in the recent time for past 5-7 years, I was always on microservices or REST APIs. So developers are always I shape. If you know the shape of I, it's like a vertical bar, correct? So I'm moving my finger top to bottom. That's what I just did now while talking to you, sitting in my office room here. Now that I shaped means that they are so focused heads down only on one thing. They have depth. That's what this indicates. They have depth. Depth of one particular thing. You will see somebody could be very smart in CI/CD. Like in my team, I have people who are so smart on some specific areas. That's what their niche is. That's what their area of expertise is. Now, let's move on to the architect thing. How do you become an architect? Or what are the criteria to become an architect? Or what are the what is the shape of an architect? Architect is a T shape. As you might recognize, there is a T on the screen in dark blue color here. T represents that the middle bar shows the depth, but the top bar, the horizontal line, shows the breadth. An architect is somebody who has depth and breadth. So as I said, I was talking about those 15 things. When you go in design discussions and things like that, many times you will be thrown into a situation where you need to design something, but you are not supposed to do it by yourself, but you are an enabler, you are a catalyst, you are going to be a coach, you are going to be a mentor, and you will be driving that initiative to make it happen or materialize it. But you will be given a team, you will be given resources who will work on it because they are expert in it. Let me give you one example, okay? I hope you understand what I mean by depth and breadth now. So at T-Mobile, there was an organization-wide initiative about not having SPOF. SPOF means single point of failure, right? What does it mean? It means that you have only one service, one app service deployed in East US or West US, any one region in the entire globe, and your app service is running there. That's it. Or your microservice or container, whatever technology you have. Your code is running there. Just think in that regards, right? Now, if your code is running there and that region goes down for whatever reason, then you are doomed. You had a single point of failure, right? So what I did, I was assigned to that task, which I took over to design the multi-region active architecture. Okay, this means all our services, all our databases, everything will be deployed to multiple regions, and then it will be active. Means everything is up and running every time. For app services, this is fair enough. But what about databases? We had SQL databases, means relational. We did not have SQL Server. We had MySQL at T-Mobile. And we also had Cassandra, which is a NoSQL version. Now, for NoSQL, it is fine. But for relational databases, if you have active, there will always be a lock situation at times and how synchronization of database replication will take place. So it has to be a different approach. So when I took it over as an architect, I knew how database synchronization works and what the issues could be. So I was able to prescribe or discuss with the team that, okay, for relational, we are only going to do master and slave. Means at any given time, only one reason will be primary. But the other reason will be secondary, means slave. So you will always write to the east region, but that data will be replicated to the west region and data will be read from their local regions. Means you write to one region, but you read from your individual regions. So when I said that, does it mean I have to do all that by myself because I did it? No. I had a dedicated resources who were so expert in this database technology. They have done it in the past. They can learn, they can brainstorm, they can do research on internet and then do it. But does it mean I read it somewhere and then I did it? That is also one thing. You can read about it. You can do some research, watch AWS talks, and all these things, Azure and whatnot. But sometimes you learn from your experience. And I am an avid reader. I read a lot. So that reading also helps because you always know more than the other things which are happening. So I hope that gave you a little bit insight. Richard, I'm not on your question yet, but I'm trying to find the right spot where I can answer your questions, but I will do it. In the meantime, feel free to type your questions. As I said, I am monitoring the chat window and I would love to answer your questions. The next slide I have is about the core qualities of software architect. There are few which I would be putting a lot of emphasis on because I learned very late in my life that how those things were really important, and I had a different perspective earlier, and so I had some drawbacks initially and some issues as well. So first thing is having technical background. That is very important. Okay, always remember that. Many architects do not have a credibility in front of their dev teams because many devs think, oh, the architects only talk about DAX, they only talk about theory and things like that. So please be mindful if you are working with a dev team or you are not working with CIOs and CEOs and CTOs and clients only. If you have an interaction with dev team, make sure you have some sort of technical background. That does not mean you have to have an engineering degree or not in that regard, but you should be able to talk to dev in their language. You should be able to understand their pain points. They should feel that you are a dev, but your just title is an architect. I would say like that. That's how I have been doing it. And I was fortunate enough to have respect from all the devs in all the companies because I was so close to them. I always spoke in their benefit, like Shehzad was asking about CSM. So when I was going to sprint planning meetings, many times I was going because that's how I learned. So I will invite myself or ask Scrum Master to send me a meeting invite for the initiative, the team which is assigned to an initiative. Like at T-Mobile, I was owning as an architect, I was owning payment and order management architecture. So if there is any new initiative coming on payment, I will go to their sprint planning meeting. I will go to their retrospective because I am also a team member, right? And I was an individual contributor there. I'm not a manager, so I'm supposed to go there. So I went, I listened. Many times when I'm sitting there, I noticed that devs are not asking questions which they were supposed to ask. So I will chime in on their behalf. I will say, okay, I have a question. I will raise my hand. I will say, okay, just on thinking like a dev here on my fellow devs' behalf, what if this downstream service is down? What do you expect us to show on our Angular UI? And devs will look at me and say, oh, that's a fair question. Why we didn't think like that? So Shahzad, those things help me there as well, that what actually need to be asked in sprint planning. There was another thing I will talk about it for everybody's benefit. Many times you have to intervene. Many times you have to take a stand. Like I was in a conversation with some good friends of mine and my colleagues there, and they will ask product owners who were writing features and user stories for any initiative and work we are doing. And there was an ask from one of the dev is to write every single acceptance criteria in the user story. They even wanted product owner to write to say acceptance criteria is that there should be no null reference exception thrown. And I had to really, oppose that idea. I said, look, product owner is not going to tell you that. That's a dev thing. Product owner can tell you what is the length of a phone number, what is the the length of a zip code and things like that, or what is the length of a name field, what is the length of an address field, which you validate. But they're not going to tell you that you should do the null reference check exception or you should do null check. That is a dev thing. If you know it's a reference type, it's a string field, and it's a required field, you have to do all those validations by yourself, right? So all these things come because I have lived through it and I have certification and I have been practicing this for many, many years. So anyways, moving on, having technical background, great with people skills. This is something, if you really want to be a successful architect, if you are not nice with people, it's not going to work. When I say that personally, I am an introvert, okay? But when I am at work, I am an extrovert. I don't know, that's some weird personality combination here, but that's how I am. Okay, so great with people skill. You need to know a lot of people, you need to collaborate with them, you need to gel well with them, and that only helps you to get work done. And there are so many examples I have where I can show you how I build relationship and get things done, not in a bad way, in a nicer way. Must understand core concepts of technology. I think I already spoke about it. Hands-on coding, I already spoke about it in detail. Communication and collaboration, this is sort of great with people skills. This is very important. Presentation skills, this is a killer. If you are an architect and you don't know how to present, many people fail just because of this, because they don't know how to present themselves and how to present in front of devs or leaders or whatever. Drive results. How it helps is that architects need to be a pathfinder. That's the best word I have for you guys. You need to be a pathfinder. If you hit a wall, you just ask questions. That's it. Right? Many times you go into meeting and you listen, and the only thing you do is you ask clarifying questions. Like many times I was in meetings and discussions, oh, this API is not working. All right, it's not working. Who did we reach out? Oh, I will ask. Then many times they will send an email to the manager or somebody. Then did you connect with that team's technical analyst who can show you a swagger how this API functions? Oh, I did not do that. All right, can we spend some time on doing it? Or if you know the names, give them those names. So that's what I did. I knew the names of analysts. I knew the name of architects of most of the common domains, which were our downstream services or microservices domains, and connecting with them, helping team to reach out to people, and watching over the emails. Many times I noticed that you have a little bit more emphasis, or I don't know what to call it, a more value, or I don't know how people take those things, but I noticed that in my previous workplaces, if somebody is sending an email, there is no response, but if I reply back, there is a response, which I sort of don't like. But many times you just have to loop in some more people, tag them in your email and say, hey, we are looking for this thing, could you please help? So those things also you need to do at times to drive results. Dive deep. Many times you will be thrown into a situation where you are, at T-Mobile I have done that, I don't know how many times. You just go and discuss the entire system design. I think that is what Richard was asking me earlier. So at T-Mobile, we have done so much digital transformation. Tremendous amount of work has happened there. It's completely on AWS. It's running on hybrid cloud. It is on Angular. It is a micro frontend, micro UI, microservice, Docker container, Kubernetes, you name it, and T-Mobile has it. Their architecture is very deep and very strong. Now, what we were doing is in designing, many times whenever anything is happening, and I was there also, I was part of B2C group initially and then later B2B, and I was on the front line. Means if you have a T-Mobile account and you go to mytmobile.com, there is a postpaid. Similarly, there is a prepaid, and similarly, there is a B2B for the business consumers. Now, there, what happens is if there is any change, I have to go and present or listen and collaborate with multiple domain architects like payment, orders, inventory, document management system, and many more like that, and customer. And that is where how we were presenting it is. The first thing which we invested into is, even before I joined, that culture was already there. I took it to next level after that is having a flow diagram. There is a very good tool, a free tool. I would like to tell every one of you. It's called Plant UML, PLANTUML, Plant UML. It's a free tool. You can just search on Google. You will find it. It's a website. You just do UI. You put a dash, put a greater than mark, the angular bracket, and then you type API gateway, and then it will draw a line for you with that. So it's very easy. You can learn about it. So we had a Plant UML there, and that is where we were showing how from browser to UI to API gateway to different microservices, we are taking hops. That was the first design thing we did. And we were doing that exercise with other architects in front of them. Many times we will bring our sequence diagram to ask them, what exactly are you changing? Tell me. So for example, payment, I will tell payment, okay, before I really send you the credit card information, how we were doing it is if you go to any website to make payment, we were going to make a call to digital payment services domain, get their token, ask user to enter credit card information, use that token which we received from the digital payment services domain, encrypt it using that token, and then send it across the network. I hope you guys understand what I mean. Now, these sort of things happen in real collaboration. And then we will say, okay, all right, guys, if you see here, we are hitting your API, we are hitting your domain. So you will see from UI a long line going all the way to digital payment services domain line in your UML diagram or a flow diagram. And we will say, retrieve this token and API name and things like that. Believe it or not, my friends, I have drawn more than 24 sequence diagrams by myself, and they were like multifold. If you scroll, it will be like 4, 5, 6 pages depth. I have done so many different payment flows: card present, card not present. You insert the card, you swipe the card, you tap the card, you do the IVR, credit card authorization, and many more things like that, and many other problems in terms of order management related issues. Now, the next item I have here is big picture. That's another beauty of becoming an architect, and that's what reflects that horizontal bar on the T shape of an architect, right? Now, what happens here is that devs only care about user stories. Let me tell you that, and that's a blunt truth. And there is no doubt they are right from their side, because you hold them accountable if user story is not done. They are beaten left and right. I have been in that situation where I couldn't sleep because I have to finish my user story, right? That user story is the only word they live into. If there is no user story, they can't do anything. Architects do not have anything assigned to them, but still they are everywhere. I had the same thing at T-Mobile. There was no action item assigned to me, but I was everywhere. I'm called into so many meetings. People are calling my name. Emails are coming with my name tag in it because I need to approve a design. I need to certify a design. I need to provide a design, right? So you know the big picture. And not only that, you also need to know what is coming next, what's going to impact your domain. Now, I'm on this here right now, ownership and accountability. That means is that you are responsible and you take ownership what you are doing and what you need to do. In this case, what happens is that you cannot just say, oh, this design went bad because of this and that. You have to have sort of a growth mindset. Things will go wrong. I will tell you that. Your design will be challenged, and which is fine. People will be poking holes in your design, which is also fine. And that's why the approach I took, I think, Richard, that also comes to your question to a certain extent, is never design in vacuum, okay? What I mean by design in vacuum is that you sit in your room one fine day in your desk and you design something and you just send to the team, hey, here you go. That's not how it's supposed to be. You have to have a buy-in from developers. Discuss with them. The more close you are to developers, the more successful you are. And that's what you are not becoming an ivory tower architect. So when I went to T-Mobile, the first thing I did is, since I was an outsider, hire from industry, not an internal transfer or anything, and their culture, I did not feel like it was a very cohesive or close-knitted with architecture and the dev team. So the first thing I did is, after joining, is I went to almost every single dev or their desks. We had an open floor sitting, like where 5, 6 tables are put together in front of each other, and 12 people are sitting on it. And that pod, we were calling that pod. That pod will have a QA, Scrum Master, product owner, devs, and all these folks in there on that table only. And they are owning, let's say, a payment, a UI. So anything happens on UI for payment, that is a table and set of people who are responsible for it. So I went to every single desk, to different rooms where our DevOps teams were sitting, and I introduced myself. I said, all right, I am Vidya Vrat Agarwal. I joined recently as a principal architect. I am your new team member. And I am here just to tell you that we architects are here to help you, and we two need to work together. So next time you are designing something, let me know. I would like to collaborate. So what I mean is that many times when these product issues comes, they will go and fix it without discussing with architects. And those fixes many times and often are called band-aid fixes because they have to get it out of the door, which is fine. I'm not saying any single word against that, but that band-aid fixes needs to be tracked somewhere as a technical debt that we need to think about the long-term architecture and fix it forever. Means Take that band-aid off, and if you need to do stitches or whatever you need to do, you do that. You take care of that thing. So those sort of things you need to take care of, so work with them. Now, this have a backbone. By the way, this is a very important thing. And I don't know how many of you know about Amazon. Amazon has a leadership principle. There are 14 leadership principles Amazon works on, and they grill you on those leadership principles based upon your role you apply in Amazon for. Have a backbone is one of the leadership principles in Amazon. What it means is, I think you already know, it's a self-explanatory. You need to stand for what is right, what is wrong, in line of decency and whatever. So I will not talk too much about it, but this is something where you need to really take a stand on few things and have courage to stand and have a backbone. Now, insist on high standards. This is also another leadership principle at Amazon, that you always insist on high standards. It could be like when I was with T-Mobile, I was insisting a lot on coding standards, guidelines, best practices, resilient architecture, and many more things like that. And many times I have to stand and say, okay, I'm not changing my design because that is what it is, unless you have a valid reason why. If you don't want to do it, that doesn't make sense to me. So I was representing have a backbone, courage, insist on highest standards and things like that, right? The last one is influential. If you are an architect and you have no influence, then that's not a good sign. Architects are supposed to be influential. That's why architects exist. They influence people. At T-Mobile, I built that sort of relationship. I'm not saying with pressure or anything. It's just relationship you build with people that they trust you, they listen to you, and they understand what you are saying has a weightage, and then you become influential. You can learn more about how to become influential and all these things. It's a separate topic by itself. I will move on to the next one. Is this one? It's that how do you become an architect, or what are the things you need to imbibe into your thinking or your lifestyle or your approach of learning and whatnot to become an architect or convert into that role or transition to that role. So as I said, the title here is, I do not believe in big bang. I always say that start small, think big, right? And have a plan. And plans won't work until you work on the plan. So those things you need to remember. So first thing is, if you really want to transition into an architect's role, is always try to get the context of the larger problem. So many times you will be given, let's say I am a dev and I am given a user story, enable the card not present payment. Now, when I heard that card, it's a PCI term, it's a payment card industry term, card not present, which means when you do the checkout from the web, when you do the web, card is not present. So there are different fields, different things will be asked to you to enter because card is not physically present. If you call a customer care on a phone line, then card is not present, right? So that's what it is called. And the CP is called card present. When you are in a store, you insert the card, you tap the card, or you swipe the card, like you go to any store for that matter. Now, when these things come to you, you should think, okay, what is the initiative this user story is part of? I don't know how many devs really have that practice that they will go to the epic or feature or look for the parent where this user story maps to and try to understand what is happening, or look at the flow diagrams in general, or look at the architecture diagram in general. And this is only for them who are transitioning into it. But even if you are an architect, also see how my domain impacts the other domain. What is my nearest neighbor domain where I interact most with, right? So, and then ask clarifying questions, understand requirements, cut the ambiguity. Many times people have so much ambiguous requirements, assumptions. So help them to drop those assumptions, right? Ask them to clear the ambiguity. Think of a customer journey. T-Mobile has that term, they call it customer journey, means how customer come to our website, what do they do? Like the customer come to tmobile.com website or any website for that matter. You select an item, you click on the item, you add it to the cart, you say checkout, now payment page comes, and you stop there for whatever reason. So you have a journey, right? And then many companies who are into this retail or selling items or e-commerce in general, they have tagging on their pages where they track a customer behavior to know how many customers added an item to the cart but never checked out, how many came up to the checkout but never filled the payment information, how many even filled the payment information but never submitted the order. So they track all these things, and then they continue to evolve from there. Means, is our UI design wrong? Is there something went wrong behind the scenes which stopped customer doing that, right? Now, the other item I have is think long term, which means you need to be progressive and you need to think far. So think about what is after that. If you deployed something in one region today, many people feel just happy and they think they are done with there. You need to think what it will take for me to deploy to two regions. At my team currently, our platform is called serviceshub.microsoft.com. It is deployed in 5 regions across the globe. We serve 5 different continents, and we have in 5 different regions. So it is close to every single consumer we have. So you need to think long term. You think what is next. Now design a reactive system, right? A reactive system, there is a blog I wrote. You can go to my LinkedIn profile or on my blog and search Reactive, you will find it. Reactive system is a system which reflects 4 qualities in it. It is responsive, it's resilient, it's elastic, and it's message driven. So think of these things when you are designing a system. If all 4 cannot be achieved, I'm sure 2 can be achieved: responsive and resilient. Responsive means it responds, you get response after every API call. Many companies follow 2-second rule. And resilient means it is self-healing. It's designed for failures and not if failure occurs. You design with when failure occurs. Like, what if my backend API call fails? What do I do? So you need to ask those questions and say, okay, in that case, I will retry behind the scenes, or I have a circuit breaker, or I have a timeout pattern, but I will show something to the UI that, hey, something went wrong, we are trying. Have you seen anything on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or even Amazon or Netflix? Many times they show those messages. Oh, something went wrong, it's not you, it's us. They will show a puppy or a dog face, and then you will refresh, and then that thing comes back. So that is either it's self-healed, or they retried and then it worked, right? Or they migrated you to the different node of the microservice. So all these things happen behind the scenes under a reactive system. It's on my blog or LinkedIn, or you can search on Google itself in general if you want to read about it. Now own the design and hand off to analysts and devs. So when I was at T-Mobile, when I was designing my flow diagrams, how I emphasized it, the collaboration with devs is, I will call a meeting, or I will go to a sprint meeting, take 15 minutes, and I will walk them through my flow diagram. And many times they knew even more than me because they were in the field. They will say, oh, Vidya, you know what? This thing is, we don't need it. We already have that. Or this hop doesn't go there. This hop is actually to this system. Or this API name changed lately. It's not called this, it's called this. So it's a collaborative effort, right? And then they were also learning that, okay, architect has a skin in the game. This person cares about the design. He educates us. So that's how you own the design, work with them, and not just believing that, okay, I checked it in. It's up to them if they see it or not, right? Now, validate and put guardrails. So this is something you always validate that that design has been implemented, and that saved me a lot of time of having, facing a little bit fire in different drills and production issues, just to make sure that whatever the design was provided, that design was implemented. I will give you one ridiculous example. I have seen in live in many places that we did put the caching strategy in place, and dev was able to put the thing in the cache, but they were not reading back from the cache. They forgot to read. They are still reading from the source of truth, means it's a database call. So why did we put it in the Redis first, right? So how do you validate these things? It's a tricky part. I don't want to talk about that now here, but I hope you guys understand what I mean, right? What if you said, go to this domain, get this thing, and cache it. Don't make another repetitive call, because this token is valid for 1 hour, for example. But dev is still making calls after calls after calls, right? So you need to validate these things in your sprint demos, for example. All right, I see you are punching the credit card information. I trust you got the token from the digital payment services domain. Could you please help me understand how long are we holding this token for? And that person will say, oh, we are not holding it. It's every time this customer comes, we will send it back. All right, that's not a design we talk about. We talked about we will hold it for 1 hour, remember? Because within 1 hour, if you have a decision, people buy within 15, 20 minutes, 1 hour. Sometimes they want to discuss with their family, spouse, husband, wife, kids, and then they will check out, right? So think like that, validate and put guardrails. Work on your people skills. I think I talked enough about it already. Now, this is my last slide for you guys, and we are almost on time, 1 minute over though. Just remember, find passion for your craft, okay? If you really want, whatever you want to be, find passion for your craft. Like I am passionate about my craft, let me tell you that. And good is enemy of great. So many times we think, okay, I have good enough skills. There is a book also, I think, on this. And before you learn how, learn why. That's the biggest thing for architects. Okay, always remember that. How is what devs are interested in. If you ask a dev, can you explain me Redis cache? Or what is the data structure inside Redis cache? Many people don't know, but they know how to implement it because it's very easy for anybody to go Google search it, copy paste the code, and then make it work. But why do you need it? Why are you using Angular, for example? Why are you using microservice architecture? If you ask any dev or even architects many times, they will say, oh, everybody is using it. Either that's the answer, or devs will say, oh, architect told me to do that. When I take interviews, I ask devs, why did you choose this? They say, architect told me that. Then I said, did you ask them why? No. So architects are more behind why and what, not how. How will come later. And there is a lot of help on that. So learn about what and why. Know what you don't know. That is another thing. For example, you are working on REST APIs and everything is one monolithic database. Then at this moment, you need to know that Word has already moved to microservices architecture and you don't know that, right? So you need to know what you don't know. And third last bullet point is the very powerful bullet point. Always remember that what got you here won't get you there. If you continue doing the same thing, what you were doing, you will not be able to go to the next level, right? So you have to do something different, and then only you will move to the next level. Always remember that. Second last bullet point is investment in self returns the best interest. All these are very easy things you can find on internet, these sort of statements, but this really works. I will tell you that. Okay. So spend time in reading, learning, taking courses. When I say that, let me give you one clarification here. I am an architect. That does not mean you go in whole 9 yards, you learn every single thing. You learn AI, machine learning, robotics, IoT, AWS, Google, Oracle Cloud, Azure. No, that's not what I mean. Learn any cloud you like or whatever you have at work. When I was with T-Mobile, I knew AWS. I knew Azure also because I'm a Microsoft MVP. But in my team now, I'm 100% in Azure. And it has no change in my thinking or in my behavior or my understanding of architecture or cloud overall. So learn whatever you have, just try to apply it, right? And try to learn things which aligns with your future vision. If you want to become an AI architect or a UI architect, invest into those things. Invest into frameworks. Like there is a Flutter new framework coming, React.js. Microsoft is 100% on React now. We are migrating all our Angular pages to React. Many companies are behind Angular. Learn any framework you like, JavaScript in general, right? And have an actionable plan, right? And more than that, find and work with a mentor who can guide you, who can help you to become the person which you want. You can find it in your organization. You can find cross organization. You can find somebody from outside. It's up to you. But mentors always help if you want. Not everybody need a mentor, but if you think about it, if you need one, find in your company somebody senior, whatever works for you. Now, this is my last slide for you. A thank you note, as you can see on the left, fake it until you make it. What does it mean is, I will talk for 30 more seconds about it is. For example, let's say you want to become an architect, right? And you are in a meeting room. First, you need to know that how do you talk about, how do architects talk, what type of questions they ask. Then start doing those things, even though you could be a dev, you could be a senior developer, you could be a team lead, tech lead, whoever you are. But your designation is not an architect yet. You are not promoted to that level yet, just in case. Then you fake it until you make it. Stand up. Once this COVID is over, people go back to offices. Stand up, take the marker pen, start writing on whiteboard. Okay, so this is what you are talking. And that will give you presentation skills. That will give you courage to talk. That will give you courage to validate and put guardrails, right? So that's what I do all the time. If there is a group and people are throwing a lot of hands in the air, drawing things in the air, I will take the marker pen, go to the board and start drawing whatever somebody is saying. Because that also helps me to learn and that helps them to clarify. And whenever I go out of the meeting, I go out with complete action plan, right? So with all these things, I would like to thank you. There is a question from Richard again. Did you say Microsoft is moving all their Angular websites to React? No, that's correct. You got it right. So Microsoft, everything is going to React now, whatever is in Angular. So with that, I really want to thank all of you for being so patient and staying a little longer. I took a little longer to explain everything for you, but I hope it was helpful. Here are my coordinates again for all of you. Feel free to reach out if there is anything you get later on, or I could not answer for you, or you think I should have covered, I did not. It's a very hard thing to put a career plan for somebody out there like this, but I hope it was helpful. Thank you so much once again. Really appreciate it.